Oh, baby. The Cardinals have released wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. We talked about on the show all the different potential destinations and some of the potential snags that could run into trying to make a trade for Hopkins. And we all said, hey, we want him to go to a contender. We want to see DeAndre Hopkins in the playoffs. He's been on these pretty mediocre teams for a lot of his career. And we thought that might be a little difficult depending on what the Cardinals were going to do for him. Were they just going to take the best return they could get? Maybe they get that from a lesser team. But now it's out in the open, and he can just pursue whichever teams are interested in him and whittle it down from there. So this is best case scenario for DeAndre Hopkins. It's best case scenario for contending teams as well. I think you look at the Chiefs first and foremost, just because the dearth of talent they're left with at receiver. I mean, there's a few guys, and of course, when you look at their pass catchers, there's Kelsey, but they haven't really had a real number one like DeAndre Hopkins. Even when it was Tyreek Hill, the difference in skill set that Hopkins will bring, especially in the red zone, compared to Hill, obviously he's not going to stretch the field in the same type of way, but what he could add to the Chiefs, I think, would be monumental in their pursuit of repeating this year. Another team we should look at is the Bills. They're a team that's going to have to be keeping up with the Joneses, and they kind of have been for a couple of years, those being the Chiefs, who have reigned supreme in the AFC. The Bengals obviously have their trio. I don't see that working much, but for those two AFC contenders, I think Bills and Chiefs really should be the front runners looking at a DeAndre Hopkins signing. Now, how much money that ends up being might be a bit of a moot point for Hopkins because he's got $22 million guaranteed coming to him this season. And I don't know exactly how it'll work with, just when he gets this money. But all of that dead cap likely accelerates then for Arizona. And it's only $11 million guaranteed next year, so it's probably a $33 million dead cap hit they'll be looking at for DeAndre Hopkins this year. They're getting nothing back. It really is a waste year for the Cardinals. They could be a team, whether or not they're going to stay committed to Kyler long term, are going to be picking very highly, and either they're going to be in the Caleb Williams, Drake May sweepstakes, or they're going to be trading out of a very high pick. And something might be a repeat of this draft, might be one more year for the Cardinals before they're even viable as an NFL team, let alone a contender, no matter who is under center. So huge move. I am interested to see how quickly this turns around into a signing. I wonder if there was a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge between him and any other teams he's been speaking to. I wonder how many players have been recruiting. Now he can really find the team that's interested in him where that is mutual. And I think it's going to be the Chiefs or the Bills, just when you look at the actual need, the actual state of both of those rosters at the moment, where with the Bills, you put DeAndre Hopkins opposite Stephon Diggs, and you still have Gabe Davis behind that. All of a sudden, that's one of the best trios in the league, if not the best. And for the Chiefs, it just adds a whole new element to the offense where you have a number one wide receiver on the outside. You have Travis Kelce on the inside, who's been something of a number one wide receiver for the last year or so there, just in that offense, the way target shares are dispersed. Suddenly, both of those teams, I think, set themselves apart. I think the top tier in the AFC right now might have four teams, depending on who you ask. It's going to be at least three. I think whichever of the Bills or the Chiefs lands DeAndre Hopkins, if it is one of those two teams, I think they're the early favorites. And I think that's a real separating factor when you compare the three. So huge move for Arizona, really shows you the direction they're going, full rebuild. And for some of these contenders out there who weren't going to be able to absorb the extra salary upon a trade, who weren't going to be able to fork over the assets or didn't want to fork over the assets in a move for DeAndre Hopkins, suddenly it's wide open for just about every team who's interested.